Hey there, it's Brian Sebastian, movie reviews and more, worldwide TV network, Women on TV.tv, IT247 out of Franklin, Tennessee, and iHeartRadio on all the platforms around the world. So this is a special show. And the reason why it's special, because we've never met before, but all of a sudden your book has become what? A bestseller? What? All of a sudden, all right, Cheryl, tell us who you are, where you're coming from, what the name of your book is.
Hi, I'm Cheryl Armstrong, and the name of my book is Plant Your Energy, Face Your Demons, and Transform Your Life. The book is about my journey of self-transformation, and I was incarcerated for 26 years. And after I got my master's degree in prison, I kind of asked myself, well, what now? And I just felt like, you know what, it's time for me to give it all back. All the things I've learned, all the lessons. And so I decided to write this book that kind of just maps out all the ways that I transformed my character while I was in a prison cell. And I want to help people now. And that's kind of my new mission. And so I want to do it through my writing and hopefully become a public speaker and, you know, help people that are struggling and let them know they're not their worst mistake and they can do things to turn their lives around like I did.
Talk about how tough that was. There were some people that didn't want me to do this. And I said, there's a reason that I need to do this because everybody needs a second chance. I know your mom wrote a nice letter to Judy. And I said, Judy, I'm going to do this because everybody has the right to do an interview. Everybody's voice should be heard. And I always agreed with that. So that's why I wanted to do it. So congratulations on doing what you've done. It's not easy, is it?
No, it's not. And I want to say thank you because I always kind of have that concern in the back of my mind about being judged, you know, for my past mistakes. I was 16 years old when my crime happened. I was a completely different person. I had a lot of anger, a lot of insecurity. I had a lot of issues when I was a kid. That is by no means the person that I am today. I worked really hard while I was incarcerated to not be defined by my worst mistake. You know, I will carry regret every day for the bad choices that I made, for the lives that it impacted, the ripple effect, you know, is unimaginable. And it was something that I didn't even think about when I was a kid. And I had a disregard for my own well-being back then, you know, so I certainly wasn't thinking about other people, unfortunately. I could not be more different today, but, you know, it was a really long journey to change those traits and to fight against giving up hope in there and to become a person who lives a life of integrity and, you know, tries to help other people and create something good out of something that was so bad.
Talk about this. When you were incarcerated, did you ever think that you, at the end of this, or even at the middle of when it was happening, that you were going to write a book?
Never. It wasn't until probably 2017 that I got serious about that. And I had a good rapport with the staff at the facility I was in. And some of them are the ones that planted the seeds in my head about, you know, you should write a book about your story. Or that's not what this book is. That will probably be my next book. I wanted my first book to be about other people. You know, I didn't want it to just be to me telling my story, but no, I never foresaw my journey turning down this path. But now that's what I want to do. I want to write and speak and hopefully change lives.
Well, you're not the only one that's gone down that path. I have a friend of mine. His name is David. He was a drug dealer dealing with the cartels. He ended up marrying Ms. America. I mean, they're friends of mine. And his story is very interesting. I haven't read your book yet, but I'm eager to read it. Talk about something that will entice people not to do what you did, but also coming out the other side.
Something to entice people not to do what I did. Well, I could tell you that when you're living in the moment like that and you are thinking irrationally and you just, you know, you want to make a point out of anger, it's the worst thing you could ever do because hurting people is not the answer to your problems, right? And like I said before, the ripple effect that, you know, the victims' families, my family, all the people that were impacted by our actions when we were kids, that just doesn't go away. And years down the line, you start to really, really recognize the impact you had on so many people. And I destroyed my life for a while there, right? And so I think that it's just not worth it, and I don't know, it's just not worth it to sacrifice people's safety, to sacrifice your freedom. There are better ways to deal with problems. And that's kind of why I wrote the book, because I want to give people some different tools to deal with their issues.
I know what it's like to be that Black male, to be that single male, to be walking down the street, to be judged, to be stopped by the police for walking too fast. It's not fun. So I can only imagine probably what you went through. Also probably what the victims went through. Talk about this two aspects of things, because what you just hit on, they're very difficult for the victims and the victims' family.
Everything that I do is to honor the victims and the victims' families. Honestly, I carry a lot of guilt and regret for how we destroyed their lives. They lost their child, their cousin, their sister, brother, and you cannot undo things like that. And so I did have an opportunity to make amends with one of the victims' cousins in my case. And that was very empowering for me. And that allowed me to kind of have some forgiveness for myself. I had known him before I was arrested, and he kind of said to me, I've followed you over the years, and he says, I forgive you, but I'll never forget that I forgive you. And I know that you aren't that person that they made you out to be. I know how it went down. Things spun out of control. And he says, I see that you're doing a lot of positive stuff in there. And I think that you should get out and help people. And so I just thought, you know what, that's what I'm going to do, for my victims and for their families.
Well, I think that's great, because you're not the only one to have gone through this. There's many, 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 many other people that have gone through. So a lot of celebrities have gone through this thing too. Yeah. Talk about where you are today as you were writing that book and where you want to go. And I can see you speaking. I can see that happening. Talk about those aspects.
So where I want to go from here, I definitely would like to market the book to prisons. And I think that it's set up in a way that it could become a curriculum. So at the end of each chapter, there's like exercises to apply the material in the chapter. And I just think that it could be used as a really great tool. Like, I want people to learn from my mistakes before they make mistakes of their own like that. I'd like it to be a prevention tool, and I definitely want to become a public speaker, because I think that, I'm an ambitious person. I'm very driven, and I want to reach the masses. I want to impact as many people as I can by being the change and walking my talk. And I just want people to know that I'm not the worst thing that I ever did, and I think that the path that I'm carving now these are great ways for me to kind of demonstrate that.
What's been the most difficult aspect for you when it comes to being with your mom? Because I know your mom has helped a lot, but how impacting is that for you? But also, where do you go from here with that book, but also on those future jobs as that future speaker, because those things can happen. And that's a great path to go down to, because you will be able to help a lot of other people, and they need it. I see them out here in Los Angeles. I see them in Vegas.
So my mom, I wrote this in the acknowledgments in the book. I mean, she is the person who makes me want to be better every day. This woman moved down by the prison that I was incarcerated at. She came to visit me every weekend for 22 years until they moved down here to Phoenix. She moved down here for health reasons. She needed to be at a lower altitude. She has COPD and can breathe better here. So that's why I'm here now in Arizona, because I promised her wherever she was, that's where I'd be. And, now my mission is to just take care of her and my stepdad. They're 81 and 83 now, and they need me. And so I'm just grateful to be here to help them with what they need, because they've been so good to me. And she just has, a loyalty and a love unlike anything I've ever seen in another human being. she's an incredible person, and she inspires me well, she has inspired me to become the person I am today, and to just keep taking that next best step forward. As far as where I see myself going, I just want my book to be a big deal. And I know that these are big words to say, but the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, that book was a huge influence in my life. And they teach it as a class in the Colorado prisons. And I kind of thought, I would love for my book to be something similar like that, but for people that have been in gangs or in prison, or who have addictions. I mean, even if you're a normal person, you've got some sort of issues within you that you're struggling with. And I think that there's something for everyone in my book, because it talks about things like triggers and creating new habits, and what are your paradigms? How do you see the world? And, it just really gets you to think about what's going on inside of you, and how can you work on chipping away at allowing those things to negatively impact your life. And so for me, it's important to meet people like you, and to put myself out there, even though I do feel vulnerable, because I know that a lot of judgment can come with, why I was in prison, and that's hard for me. But I have to find the strength within myself, because I know I'm taking the right steps to help people to face that head on, and move forward anyways. And that's why I want to do public speaking, because I think that my story is important. I think that there's a lot to be learned from the mistakes that I made.
What else are you doing when you're not taking care of your parents? How are you able to cope a different way? Because it's not easy, is it?
No, it's not. And what I decided to do, so when I got out, and there's nothing wrong with being a waitress or working in the service industry, but I've thought, I don't want to take that path just to get a job when I get out. I'm very strategic with my choices. And that's a big lesson I learned right after having committed my crime. I always think about what I'm doing and the pros and cons. And so I wanted to get into a career field kind of on the side, because my book and speaking is ultimately where I want to go with my life. But in the meantime, I need to find some sort of work, right? So I decided that I was going to get certified to become a peer support specialist. And I don't know what you know about that field, but basically it's people with lived experience of incarceration and or addiction, behavioral health issues, things like that. And I got certified here. And so now I just got a job at a place called Recovery Innovations International. And it's like a crisis center, a behavioral health facility. And thank you. And interviewed at another place. It's kind of similar to that, called Community Bridges. So I'm seeking employment where I can get out in the field and I can work with people who are struggling.
I'll tell you why that is great, is because, like I said, I'm seeing more. I call them the walking dead, because they're just out there walking. They've been released from prisons, jails. Where do you go? What do? You kind of just throw it out there. You understand what that's like. It's not easy. So that having that job, going for what you've been certified for, that's the correct path to go. And what's your book? I see your book going into those prisons and going to those jails. And that makes sense because you were there, and they can relate to someone who was there.
Yeah.
Can't they?
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that's an important piece of what I'm doing is my relatability. I'm not perfect. I've had tons of issues in my past, a lot of struggles internally, emotionally, even psychologically. And I was so deeply impacted by what I was a part of when why I went to prison. And I need to make it count for something. I don't want my legacy to be my worst mistake. That's not who I am. That was just a moment in my life, unfortunately, that caused a lot of damage. But what I'm doing today, like, this is who I really am, and it's just important for me to everything that I'm doing. I want it to be positive, and I want it to be helpful to other people in whatever capacity.
How important was it for you to speak with me, and what did you know about me? And then why did you want to speak with me?
So, I didn't know who you were, of course. I've been in Colorado. I don't really know anything about what's going on out here. And when my publishing company, of course, Hasmark is fantastic. So they presented me with the opportunity, and I looked you up and researched and everything. And I think that there's something really special about you because you want to help people too. And you just seem like a great guy. I like the whole vibe that you've got going on. And I think that it's important for me to connect with someone like you to kind of get my name out there and maybe help me find out the next best steps for where I'm trying to take my career. I just think that you could be helpful for that. And you're somebody that I just would love to have on my team. So
Talk about this. Have you gone back to where you incarcerated to? Have you gone back there yet? And what was that like? If you
not yet, but I'm going to. I'm definitely going to go in and speak up there.
When are you going? Do you know yet?
I don't know yet because now that I've been out for 7 months, but I'm just now going to start getting regular income. And because I've been doing an internship for peer support specialist work, I was actually asked to be a facilitator. They wanted me to start teaching, but I think that I'm going to take a different path because I kind of want to be out in the field more actively helping people. But once I can get the money saved up, I'm going to definitely go up there as soon as possible.
How do you think that will be for you emotionally and internally?
I think it's going to be a whole mixed bag of emotions. I think it's going to feel really good to just, wow, after 26 years, my whole adulthood spending incarcerated, going back in and seeing those familiar faces. It's going to be bittersweet. I have some good friends there who are never getting out. Who also made one terrible mistake in their lives, but are otherwise really fantastic people. Some of the best people I've met have been people that have committed a murder, honestly. And, they got caught up in a terrible situation and something spun out of control. And now that's it for them, And so I'll never forget where I've been and how it impacted my life. And that's why I'm going to go back and speak. I'm excited about it too. But I think it'll be emotional for me. I do.
Where was that? Where was it at?
I fell out of Denver, Colorado, but I did most of my time in Pueblo, Colorado, Southern Colorado.
Yeah, that'll be interesting because you can touch a lot of lives by going back there and doing that. It would be interesting if you ended up working there.
It would. It would. And I've actually seen that happen with a guy who he was a juvenile convicted as an adult also. And he did 21 years and he got out and now he has a set of keys to the prison that he did most of his time in. So it's happened up there.
Yeah, that's interesting. You should connect with him also because I think that would be great. The male version and the woman version of that. And see what happens afterwards because that leads to another book, but that also leads to more speaking. That's the path that you should take also and have those opportunities open for you that way.
Absolutely. Yes. The only problem with that is that I don't really want to go back and live in Colorado because my parents are here. So, we'll see how that plays out, but I'm definitely going back to speak to them.
I want to know when you go back because I'd like to hear a follow-up of that. That would be interesting. Talk about this what were you doing for hobbies when you were younger and then where you are now? Because when you got out, life has changed. What was it like when you first got out? Because all of a sudden there's the internet, there's social media. How do you handle all of these things?
So my hobbies when I was inside, I crocheted all the time. I make really beautiful cards. I do something called quilling. It's like I make flowers and different things with paper. It's beautiful. I trained dogs for a number of years in there and actually adopted 2 of the dogs that I trained. They were shelter dogs and they're here with me now. So I thought that was pretty cool. We're saving a lot of lives of dogs that would have otherwise been killed. I like to exercise. I'm a runner. I get up and take my dogs running a lot. So, I always kept busy and, I filled my time with positive things in there. And I was like a co-facilitator on some classes in there. So I was part of the 7 Habits on the Inside class, and I got to help teach that class for a few years. Another class that was kind of like Toastmasters, where we, it was like a book club thing and you get up and give speeches. I was the co-facilitator with the staff member on that. So I did some cool stuff in there. And then getting out, never talked on a cell phone, never been on the internet before. I did a lot better than I thought I would, like going into stores and being around a lot of people. I didn't really have as much anxiety as I anticipated, but I felt very insecure about like paying for things. Like I've never used a debit card, all these like getting gas, all these little things that people probably don't really ever think about. They were a little challenging for me at first, just because they made me feel insecure because I've never done it. So I learned something every day about technology.
Talk about this during the pandemic. What was that like for you?
While incarcerated. Okay, so they had us pretty much locked down for the last year that I was there. And that continued some months after I got out. And so they pretty much had you segregated by unit. And so when you would go to eat, you went one unit at a time. We couldn't have access to our big yard where we would go out and, you know, socialize with people in the other units. We were confined just with the people in our unit. And then they weren't bringing any new inmates into the facilities. And so what had been 100-bed unit, there ended up being like maybe 15 people in our unit. And, you know, we were always getting yelled at to wear our masks, and it was stressful and definitely a lot of seclusion that last year. And then my last 2 weeks in prison, they made me quarantine for COVID. And then they tested me 5 days before I got out. And I was thinking, God, I never thought I'd spend my last 2 weeks in here in the hole, basically segregated. So I wasn't loving that. And I didn't really get a chance to say goodbye to the people I wanted to. And that was hard.
And then talk about when you come out at that point, because now you have to deal with a whole different type of quarantine and pandemic, right?
Yeah. So it was crazy going into the stores and everybody's wearing masks, and, you know, you've got the sign set up to socially distance. And I don't know, it was kind of stressful for me because it was just something that was unknown to me, you know. And then my parents are older, and so, you know, they don't really like to leave the house because they're scared of COVID, you know. And so I haven't really had an opportunity to go out and about as much as I would have had things been normal, you know. So that was kind of a bummer because I'm finally free, but not really.
Well, it goes back to your book, because a lot of people are dealing with probably what you went through inside and outside. And it's almost like an even keel, because I can sit there and see certain people. And like I said, I'm seeing what's being released out there. I'm seeing them walk around and talking to themselves and just not knowing what to do. And then I'm seeing my friends who are okay and they're not okay. Sometimes they're worse than what I'm seeing the people who have just been released. It's very interesting.
Yeah. And, you know, I think that's an interesting point. I think that probably having been incarcerated made what's going on out here probably easier for somebody like me than, you know, someone who's never been in that kind of experience, because I'm already used to all the restrictions, you know.
Last two questions. How can people reach out to you to learn more about you, about your book, and helping people? What do you want to get out there? What's the message you want to give to people?
Well, people can reach me. I have not just my book. I actually started a small business, and it's called Plant Your Energy. So my website for that is plantyourenergy.life. And after I got my master's degree in 2016, and I had mentioned to you that I was like, well, what do I do now? Okay, I'm going to give everything back that I've learned. That was the initial idea that came to me. Plant Your Energy is just kind of, how do you want to live your life, right? Every thought you think, every action that you take, they all have an impact somehow in the world. And so the whole idea behind the business was just that kind of mindset, right? How can you start planting your energy and being a better person? But initially what we did is just opened a small retail shop. So like, I don't know if you can see this, but I'm wearing one of my shirts. So this is the logo. And so I have 4 different t-shirt designs, and we're selling t-shirts and some shorts, just a few things. Cause that was my initial idea of, hey, this is how I can get my idea out there. I can get people to wear the gear. And then I wanted to encourage people. I wanted to build like a huge network where people are just all coming together and posting pictures on social media of how they're planting their energy, how they're living their best lives. And so it's kind of just a positive thinking I want to encourage you to all be better type of thing. And then that's the idea for the book came after that. So plantyourenergy.life is the website. You can buy the book from there also. And so, I would like to build my brand, but there's so many different directions that could go. So I'm kind of open-minded to just see where life takes me. And, because I didn't foresee the book coming. And so now that's kind of my new mission, is the book and the speaking, and the clothing part might kind of fall to the wayside,
So when you found out that you were becoming a best-selling author, what was that like?
Oh, wow. I don't even know how to put that into words. I couldn't believe it. And it happened really fast too. Like the day after the launch, they said, "Oh, congratulations, your book is a bestseller." And then later that week, they said it had the international bestseller badge now they were going to put on it. And it's just incredible. I'm overwhelmed with gratitude, and it just kind of makes me want to propel myself to that next level, because I just see a lot of potential in it. It's exciting.
I think your old inmates would love to read your story, wouldn't they? That would also encourage them, wouldn't it?
Yes. And some of them already have the book. It's in the prisons up there in Colorado, in the women's prisons, at least, for sure.
Good for you. So the last inspiration for people again is what?
Just always believe in the good in yourself. None of us are our worst mistake. Unfortunately, my mistake was absolutely ginormous. Hopefully others are not as bad as mine was, but whatever it is that has gone wrong in your life, you can always wake up the next morning and you have that choice to take a new path and make better choices for yourself. And I just want to teach people that there are ways to undo unhealthy thinking patterns. There are ways to turn things around that have gone wrong in your life.
All right, Cheryl, I want to thank you for that. It's good to hear your story. It's good to see where you were heading to with your book. Hopefully your clothing line too. Don't give up on that, because they go hand in hand. Remember I said that they go hand in hand. And with that, I see your path going in and speaking, starting to where you were incarcerated, doing some things with them, but also going cross at that point, cross country, and at the same time taking care of your parents, because that's most important, because they are up there in age, right?
Yeah. Yeah, they're doing pretty good though. They're doing pretty good. So thankfully.
Was your mom happy when she saw the label on your book?
Oh yeah. I bought some author's copies, and we had to put one up on the shelf that isn't to be touched, so she can, admire it. She's very proud of me.
Good for you. Good for you. So as I always say with everybody, thank you for coming on. And if you see someone without a smile, please give them one of yours, because the world needs it. Thank you, Cheryl Armstrong. I'm Brian Sebastian. This is Movie Reviews and More, and we will see you next time.